In one of the previous videos, we have created a simple generative agent using JavaScript and OpenAI. In this video, I would like to build upon that idea and to create a game where we are going to use those generative agents. And the game which we are going to build is called Mafia. And the idea of the game, or a simplified version of it, as I will use, is that among villagers, somewhere there is a mafia. No one knows who is who, and the goal for mafia is to eliminate all the villagers, and the goal for villagers is to find mafia. All of our players will be generative agents, and their behavior will be dictated by a large language model. Again, for this example, I will use OpenAI together with JavaScript. And you will be able to find the whole repository in the link below this video. But let me show you how you can build such application yourself. First and foremost, we need to have our agents, our players in the game, such as Emily, Michael, Vincent, Sophia, and others. And for this, I created a class with the name agent, which has all the common characteristics and behaviors which our players have, including the mafia and the villagers. Such things as, for example, the name of the player, some traits of that character which will shape also the behavior, whether it will be our mafia or it will be a villager. Then the description of the game, and here the description of the game is kind of same, but the focus will be different between mafia and the villager, so I kept it as a separate property which our subclasses will then send there. The role of that player, whether the player is alive, what are their observations, opinions, and what exactly they have heard from other players, so that we can use that information later to shape what the player will do. Then we have some prompts which I kept separately, and those prompts will be different between the villagers and the mafia. And finally, the game state, where we keep different types of information, but the one which is important for our player is the awareness whether some players are still alive or they're already killed by mafia. Apart from this, there are some methods which represent the abilities of a player, such as to express an opinion and then to remember what they actually have said in the past, listen to others and kind of reflect on what others have said, simulate observations for different events. For example, mafia killed a player, and in the morning we want to reflect on what has happened. Or maybe villagers selected a player to be mafia, but they actually made a mistake, and we want to reflect on that as well. And finally, if you remember a game of mafia, the villagers will every day try to vote and select a person who they think is mafia and eliminate that person. And if they guessed, it's good. If they didn't guess, oh well, they have to continue. So here we can also kind of simulate that vote by the villagers. And of course, the prompt which we are giving to the villagers, to the large language model for a villager and for the mafia is a bit different, because their goals in the game is a bit different. So in addition to agent, we will have also a mafia subclass which will inherit the agent characteristics and behaviors, and also a villager over there as well. Mafia, for example, has some additional behaviors, such as possibility to select a victim. During the night, Mafia will select that player it wants to eliminate. And here I had to go into very deep lengths explaining to a large language model how exactly to select that victim, so that mafia then later is not caught by villagers. Admittedly, my mafia is still pretty silly and makes very weird decisions when selecting a player to eliminate, and often actually it reveals itself by doing that. But well, I'm still working on making my mafia a bit smarter. But here is a long prompt which I have for that. And then we again relate to the simulate method, which I think I haven't mentioned so far. For the agent, we have this simulate method where we actually combine all the knowledge which a player has, the latest observations, opinions, what they have learned from others, and then we create a message which we are going to send to large language model about the context of the game, and in addition the direct information on the action which we are doing in this specific moment, whether it is voting for a player to be kicked off, or expressing opinion, or reflecting on what we have learned. And then I do have some kind of a helpful methods to get that information back from the system and then bring it to the user interface. And that's where I use some kind of a prompt callback so that we can see this nice prompt, not really nice, but useful prompt, and kind of see what we send to the system and to which prompt a character right now is producing some action. Additionally, Mafia has some specific prompts which I use for explaining the game description, as well the opinion prompt when we are asking what Mafia thinks and how it reflects on what other players have said to shape kind of its strategy, how to behave in the future based on what other players have expressed, so that it can mislead others and get what it wants. The same for the vote prompt. Here I also ask whom it wants to pinpoint based on the fact that it is Mafia. In my experience, when we send those prompts to large language model sometimes really forgets the role in the game, so kind of repeating several times that it is Mafia, it is evil, it needs to mislead others really helps. Then the same for the villager. Here we have information on the game description, a bit more like to use observations, analytical skills, teamwork, and so on, to get the opinion on what others have said, and what exactly right now a villager thinks about the situation, and also to have this explanation of the voting process, and asking to who do you think is the Mafia. In addition to agents, what we need to have is the state of the game, to which I already referenced over here. So the game state. So for the game state, I have another class where we collect all the information about ongoing state, who is killed, who is still alive, who is Mafia, and potentially who is the winner, which means for us that the game has ended and we finally have some winning party. I do have a lot of small methods over here to remove a villager who was killed, to get all the alive villagers, and some other stuff. For the active villagers right now, I just returned all the alive villagers. I think I need to reshuffle, so every round I don't have the same sequence of the villagers talking one after another, because that introduces, at least from what I observed, this imbalance, because whoever starts a conversation actually has way more power to influence other players. So either I need a bit more conversation rounds, which I think would be the best solution to this problem, or at least I can try reshuffling the villagers so that it's never that Mafia always starts the conversation, and it's never the villager starts and Mafia is the last, because whoever starts most often actually wins. Then other methods like set the Mafia, get the Mafia. The game state also shapes the user interface, and this is where I'm taking information about the live villagers, killed villagers, and so on. The core of the game is in the class game logic. This is where we actually introduce the game state, and also we add UI handler, about which I will talk a bit later. We start by initiating all the agents which we have, and based on their roles, we either created using a villager class or a mafia class. And then we set the mafia, if it's a mafia, and in any case, because mafia is also a villager, so we add all of them into the set of the active players. We do some magic with UI handler, which I will tell you in a second, to initiate the game. And then we have different rounds which we can split generally into several steps. So we start by having just a day conversation. So this is where every character expresses what they think about the current state of affairs and who might be a mafia. I do give a bit of a different prompt for the first round and for the later rounds, because during the first round we don't really have any observations, opinions, and no one have said anything important yet. So if we don't really have observations or opinions, then I'm telling that this is the very start of the conversation and you don't know anything. So here I try to experiment, because I don't want them start blaming someone else and imagining some reasons. I want it to be a bit more a mild start where they don't really offend another player from the beginning, because again it kind of brings it not really balanced, realistic dynamic of the game. So players go one by one and they express their opinion on the game and what is happening and who might be mafia. Like, for example, Sophia over here says that she believes they should be cautious and keep a close eye on Emily. After that player express their opinion, everyone else will start reflecting on it and saying if they agree with Sophia or not. And that's what happens during the day. So here we have the villagers conversation method, and there we have also handle other villagers listening to that particular player and get them their thoughts on what they have heard. Then the villagers might vote on whom to eliminate as potential mafia. I do that only from the second day onward. So during the first day, they just talk, and later during the second day and onwards, they also vote whom to eliminate based on their conversations. The vote process happens by collecting all the votes, all the opinions of every villager who should return a name of the person they want they suspect to be mafia. Of course, we also have mafia who tries its best to mislead others, not always successfully, but still tries. And then I process the vote result and select the most common vote if we have that one. And the final stage is the night, where our mafia selects victim to be removed from the game, and then in the morning everyone learns that a player has been killed by mafia, and then every villager reflects, except of actually mafia, reflects that the player has been killed, and then we also update their observations based on that. So this is the main logic of the game. Here in this class we also have the game over condition. We rely on the state of the winner in the game class. Let me see where I populate that one. Yes, over here. So if the number of the players which are left after mafia killed someone is less than 2, which means that actually it's mafia and someone else. So in the next round, mafia will kill that single extra villagers in any case. Then mafia has won, and let me see, villagers have won if they managed to kick out mafia from the game. So these methods are part of the core logic of the game, And to start the whole application, we go to server.js. This is where I'm using libraries such as Express and Socket.io to connect our frontend and our backend together and exchange the messages among them. The entrance into the backend is in the play.js, which we will see in a second. But before that, we create our server, we set up all those files and cores which we need. And when the socket is connected, we wait for the information from the front end that the page has been loaded. And when that happened, we know that we can start the game by running the play method. And the play method mainly creates this UI handler where we are taking the socket from Socket.io and we initiate the game logic. And over here as well, in the play file, I have the list of agents which I want to have in my game. So I have the villagers, I have mafia, I have those traits which we have seen. And what we do, we just iterate over those in the initiate of the game, and that's where we are creating those agents. What else do we do? Here we start by a day conversation. This is the initial start of the game, so players still don't know much about each other, and that's why we are not doing the voting after that. But then we go into a while loop, which consists of a night, then another day conversation, and then a vote. If the game hasn't finished by that time, we go to another round for another night, for another day conversation, for another vote, and we continue this till we find either mafia or all villagers are dead. Now for the front-end side, which I have over here, I have an HTML page where some stuff I predefined with already some layout over here, for example, such as the state of the game, who are alive villagers, who are killed villagers, like over here in the header, what the villagers think, and then the prompt. But some of the stuff I actually generate on the flight using a script, so that whenever we have an agent, when we initiate the game and we create the agents, we actually create a div element and we set the ID of that element to the name of the agent, so that later when we need to react to whatever they are expressing, we can find that element. So let me find something like, for example, over here, update an action. So what we do, we get the information from the socket and then we find the element by its ID for that particular user, and then we put the text content over there. Obviously, I have a number of styles over here just to make it a bit more visually appealing, which I am not even sure I achieved that part, but still, it's a long CSS file. And finally, what we need, of course, is to emit those events from the socket. And for this, I have this UI handler, which generally just takes the socket and then creates, we have some small methods here, which set that connection between the server side and the front-end side and emits events based on the methods which I call from the game logic. And that's basically it. So the link to the repository is in the description of this video, so you can run it, you can play with the code, change however you want, and also you can tell me what you would do differently.